Today, I'm going to be talking to another awesome guest. And the person I'll be talking to is Marco Arienti.
I need to say that the whole experience of working in a really, really fast-paced environment has helped me a lot.
In which something internships offer that students don't get at university. Why, rather than just go up the career ladder, you got off the career ladder and decided to hop on a different ladder, right? So you made a switch from law to teaching.
I think quite surprising because both in Germany and here, students are very afraid of making mistakes because apparently the society or I don't know, even other teachers, they scold them immediately. But I don't. The government here is very, very progressive. And they understood that education plays a crucial part in developing the country.
I'm really excited about these challenges.
Yes.
Because I see them as new opportunities to learn and grow. Yeah, not necessarily big problems and new headache like most people do, but to me it's like a reason to wake up in the morning because I know there's a opportunity, new possibility for me to become the better version of me. Yeah, to take on new skills and qualities and help more people than I'm doing already. Yeah.
There are good times and bad times. There are times in which financials are restrained. So what do you do in those times? Will you still pay high salaries to those who have supported you for 5 years? Or would you just cut them? Or would you go to them and say, listen, we don't have this money anymore. Would you agree to have a salary without a bonus for 6 months and then we will sit down again?
If that was the case in Uzbekistan, imagine that. Imagine that. I'd have 10 kids right now. You get the Neuralink chip and they program AI to it and they install it in their brain and they become superhumans and have godlike powers and start controlling the rest of the world.
Don't work hard, work smart.
Hey folks, hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Muse. I'm your host, Muhammad Ali here. Today, I'm going to be talking to another awesome guest. And the person I'll be talking to is Marco Arienti. He works at one of the presidential schools in Uzbekistan and he teaches business. So yeah, Mr. Marco, thanks for coming on the show.
Hi. Hi.
So would you like to tell our audience a little about yourself? So what do you do at the moment?
Well, at the moment, I'm teaching business in grade 10 and also in grade 9. Last year, I was also teaching economics. And that's, and I think, and I have got one class in English as a second language in grade 8. So that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm living in Bukhara, of course.
Oh, yeah. That's very interesting. So at the moment, you're teaching all these different subjects at presidential school, right? So what do you say we take some time talking about your past, right? So can you tell us a little about your background?
Well, I come from a corporate background. I've worked 7 or 8 years in 2 international law firms after my first graduation. So basically, I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in languages. And with that, I started working it's called Wolf Theis. It's one of the 2 biggest international law firms in Central Europe. I think at the moment they have 13 offices throughout Europe, and I was in the headquarters. I started off as an evening assistant just to finance my second studies. So I wanted to get a business degree, but then things went quite well. I was promoted, and basically my workload got way more complex than it was at the beginning. So I dropped my studies and actually got an MBA a few years later. And that MBA is from Scotland. So it's the Robert Gordon University in Aberdeen. I really recommend that university, I need to say. And I think I graduated in 2014. Yes, 2014. So approximately 10 years ago from there. And these, well, that's my second master's, and all these studies were then recognized by the German Ministry of Education. It's the county of Brandenburg, which is south of Berlin. So after 7 or 8 years of working for law firms, I've had enough, and I decided to become a teacher.
Yeah.
And I need to say that the whole experience of working in a really, really fast-paced environment has helped me a lot. Becoming a teacher and also getting my second, oh well, not my second, my teaching license in Germany, which was pretty tough. It was 1.5 years on top of working full time, and especially when you go into teaching in those state schools, it's very, very difficult at the beginning. Totally new environment, and to deal with let's say 100 to 120 children every day who you don't know and you're not used to, it was very, very difficult. Yeah.
So what is it like working for a law firm, and what do people who work for a law firm like usually do? Like when we think of lawyers, we think of people who always wear a suit and a tie and who speak in this cryptic language.
Well,
right?
they do. They all wear suits and they look professional. But I was support staff, so I've had not so much contact with the clients. I've had very little, but well, to some extent, I would say. But big law firms, they operate like corporations, so they need, of course, accountants and marketing personnel and all sorts of support roles. And I was kind of the right hand of a department head. So in a big law firm, in a corporate law firm, you would have different, they call them practice groups. And my practice group was internet law, and these days it's called TMT, technology, media, and I don't even remember exactly. So it was intellectual property and internet law at the time. So,
right.
Yeah.
So would you recommend law as a career to young people? You think it's worth a shot?
Yes, it's worth a shot. But if you want to practice law, you need to be aware of the fact that you can only practice law where you actually studied. Yeah, so there are some master degrees in international law, but you would only get a license where you actually take the bar exam. And the bar exam is related to your studies in most countries in Europe. Yeah, so there is no real flexibility. So if you study law in Scotland, you have to be a lawyer in Scotland. I'm not sure about the United States, where things seems to be a bit more flexible in the sense that you can take bar exams in different states. But in Europe, it's just, it's limited to the country where you actually studied. The European framework, though, allows you to get a license if you practice law, I think 3, 4, 5, I don't remember exactly. So if you practice law for a certain time within a corporate law firm, then you can get an accreditation.
Yeah, I see.
But it takes a long time, all of this. And not all of them succeed because you still would need to take a very complex exam.
Yeah. So it's not like medicine where you get degree in any university and you can practice medicine in any part of the world.
No, absolutely not.
It's simply because different countries have their own rules and their own law policies.
Yes, right? I mean, the funny thing is that the Roman law is like a third of each and every legal framework in Europe. But of course, you don't study Roman law at university level. It's just that it's incorporated in all the little exams that you take, but you're not aware of that fact until basically the very end when you study the history of law. Yeah. So
for those students who are just getting started and want to take up law as a major, what is something you would recommend?
These days?
Yeah.
You mean here in Uzbekistan or
in general? Like if I'm on a major in law, do you think I should do some internship at a law firm right off the bat? or do you think I should wait until I get some theoretical knowledge, right?
I would always recommend to take internships. It's also something I recommend to my students here, and also something I recommended to the Ministry of Education in Uzbekistan, because it's common practice in the so-called Western world, especially in Europe. So I've worked in Germany, and the students would have to go to internships. They would have to attend internships as part of their curriculum. If they don't attend, they will miss some exams, I think. Yeah, so it's obligatory.
Right.
So,
and what's something internships offer that students don't get at university?
absolutely. I mean, the universities. University these days, I wouldn't say all of them, but because I have not been to all universities, I've been actually to a university that was very, very good at at teaching the real life, because they invited a lot of guests from the corporate environment in Aberdeen. But at university level, especially law and also business administration, everything is set for you to find one or two solutions. And I remember a colleague of mine saying that when he came as an intern, and now he's a very, very good lawyer, by the way, very, very well-known lawyer. He started with me, and he said the difference between the law firm, internship, and university is that at university, at the exam, you get a paper or maybe 1.5 A4 papers, and then you can solve the problem. But when he started there, he got something like 3 or 4 piles, and then his boss told him, "Okay, listen, in 1 hour, I need an answer about these 3 questions." And he and he said, "Why?" And he said, "Yeah, because the client wants to know it, and I don't have time for this, and it's a very easy thing to find out." So 3 piles were thousands of pages, and at that point, you need to know where to search for information in certain files. So I would say from the age of 13, 14, up to the age of 18, 19, I recommend each and every student all around the world to do an internship at least once a year. And I also recommend students to work in summer. They should do, though, a work that is related to their studies or to their interests, because I see a lot of young people wasting their time with work they don't really want to do in the future. Don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with delivering pizzas, but and it needs to be done. But if you want to become a lawyer, you should probably search for an internship that gives you an insight into how law is practiced.
Yeah, that's a very important thing to consider as a young student. Because that's something I realized personally back when I was in university. I was majoring in economics with finance, and I was taught all these different concepts and theories, and I couldn't quite connect the dots, because I'd be taught something at university, but when you watch the news or listen to politicians or talk about different things, you don't see the application of those things in real life.
So the point is, I told you my university was very good. So in my corporate finance exam, I received the annual report by a major European aviation company. Of course, it took out the name of it, but it was pretty clear that it was either EasyJet or Ryanair. It was pretty obvious. And they only gave me 3 questions. They said, could we afford to introduce a luxury brand, or luxury flight, something like that? And then there were 2 questions relating to that question. And the IFRS annual report, or an IFRS report, would be something like 70 to 120 pages. And then you really need to know where to look at, because you will be given 15 or 20 minutes to prepare. And there was a committee, And the committee consisted, of course, of my tutor, then the professor, then the dean himself. He sat there, and then there were two people from an auditing company, from one of the big four, KPMG and Deloitte and so on. And they were really nasty. Yeah. And
what exactly did they do? You mean
well, they were asking questions. I mean, it was like in an interrogation.
Mm-hmm.
But that really showed me how real life would work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so all this theory is kind of spoiling the students at the end of the day, and they feel secure and safe. And they say, I scored an A+. And when you work in a law firm, I wouldn't say nobody gives anything about your marks, which it's not true, but you have to survive in real life. Yeah. And what I said to them is, listen, I mean, it's pretty obvious that Ryanair, whoever it was, you have enough money, you can afford this. But then I said on page 74 or 76, yeah, I don't remember, on one of these pages, it says that some of your routes are not cost efficient. And I said, what? I said, yeah, they're not, because basically between 2 or 3 cities in Europe, you were making losses. And then I said, if you basically take out the planes from there, and I said, paint them nicely and put in nice furniture, it's much better than either renting or even buying airplanes. And then they started discussing. Yeah, they started discussing among themselves, oh, well, yeah, this is something we did not think about. But that just came to my mind because I had been working many years in an international context.
Yeah.
And I don't think any student who just knows the theory would have come across that idea. So, yeah, I think that theory is important. It's the basis of it all, but it needs to be practiced all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
So as soon as students start going to school, their choice of university or college, they should be eager to get some internship, whether paid or unpaid, so they can build some practical experience and start to get a better idea of how the world works outside the university context.
Yes. About paid and unpaid, reasonable companies will always pay you. Yeah. Those who are professionals, really professional, they will always pay you, because for them paying interns is just peanuts.
Oh, I
it's
see.
Really, it doesn't matter at all whether they, even in Europe, even if they give you 500 a month or even 1,000 a month, it's nothing. I mean, really nothing for them. And those who want to give you an unpaid internship, they're usually those who are kind of fishy.
Yeah, that's something I didn't realize, because I used to think that if the guy has the skills, I don't mind if he's paying me or not paying me. I'm just gonna work for him.
No,
yeah,
I wouldn't do that. It also depends on the country. For example, in Italy, it's like this. There is a law in Italy that until the age of 20 now you're a so-called apprentice. I mean, what is that? Yeah, you graduate at the age of 23, and then for 6 years you're an apprentice. I mean, what is this? So this is basically a way of squeezing people out, and I don't recommend it at all, because it's psychologically not good for yourself, and at the end of the day they will discard you for another one, who works for free.
Yeah.
And I know that there are a lot of countries who have got this, let's say, philosophy or attitude, but if a company is serious, then they will pay you. Maybe not much, but they will pay you.
Yeah. So just enough to pay the bills.
Yes, to pay the bills, because a student, let's say at master's level, would probably either have a scholarship or at least have the studies paid, and then the students need to survive in some way. And at those levels, you would already search for a job. Yeah, and a good company would actually look for the good students. And if they don't pay them, it's pretty obvious that they would be just looking for something mediocre. Yeah. So it's a whole game. I would say that work needs to be retributed. Yeah.
And at some point of the podcast, you said you decided to quit your job. You had enough of it. So what made you make that decision?
In an international corporation or in an international law firm, every year is very, very similar. So you have got those seasons, I would say, and then you have got the fiscal year that ends and the quarters. And it was getting kind of boring for me. I did not quit because I did not like the law firm. It was a very good place. I was also very good with my superior. We're still in contact over LinkedIn, and sometimes, every once in a while, we write to each other, and I follow his posts as well. But it was just I'm a person who needs constant challenge, and as a teacher, every day is different. Every day is different, especially in state schools. Yeah. I mean, the presidential schools are a little bit different because they are kind of an elite environment where students are very, very well behaved. But in a normal state school in Germany, they are not. And you need to find your way through it. So every day, I mean, in 6 years, every day was different. And it's something I enjoyed, quite honestly.
Yeah. So one question I got on my mind right now is, why, rather than just go up the career ladder, you got off the career ladder and decided to hop on a different ladder, right? So you made a switch from law to teaching.
Well, I did not have a law degree, I need to say.
Okay.
I did not have. I told you I had a language degree, and I was studying business administration at the time. So I think, well, I was already at the top form as regards my age and my experience, because above me there would only have been the management level, but really the upper management level. So that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, the law firm was not as big as the American ones that have 2,000, 3,000 people. We had something like 650.
I mean, that's still a big firm.
Yes, it's a big firm, that's true, but it did not have a career path really for support staff.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. But you did make investment in getting a degree in education, though, right? You could have made that investment in getting a degree in law, right? Or is that something that didn't occur to you at the time?
Well, law studies in Austria, they are 5 years.
So you just couldn't wait until that long to get a degree?
No, because I had a degree in languages already.
Oh, I see.
In translations. So
that explains it.
Yeah. And I was never really interested in practicing law,
right?
I need to say. Yeah.
Now, what do you say we talk a little more about than teaching? So you said you've taught mostly English, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
How many countries?
2.
2 countries. So how do you like teaching? How does your experience of teaching in one country differs from your experience of teaching in another country?
So first of all, I like teaching very much, and I think it's my vocation in life, or to work in this environment. I enjoy being in the classroom. I don't enjoy so much or as much being with my my teaching colleagues. Not because I don't like them, but just because I enjoy working with teenagers. So whenever I enter the classroom, I know I'm at home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I thought when I came here that a so-called elite school would be very different from a normal state school in Germany, but it's actually not. The students here, I would say, they grasp knowledge quicker, but they show the exact same behavior as in Germany, meaning that their way of learning, their way of developing their skills is very, very similar. And that kind of surprised me.
Like, in what ways similar?
Well, I would say teenagers are teenagers everywhere. So at a certain point, they change their interest towards, just towards other. But they have other interests at some point, and this is very, very similar to Germany. That's what I would say.
And more on teaching, what's your approach in the classroom? How do you go about teaching? So you mainly teach business and English, right? So
Yes, last year economics. Yes.
right. So how do you go about teaching? Do you usually use like handouts, visuals, or is it like more teacher oriented, have lectures?
No, no. I mean, this is something maybe my best friend once said that I'm very unconventional, and I think that comes from my corporate background. So I try to make the classroom as realistic as possible. So in each and every lesson in business, students have to be active. They have to produce something. Either they have to produce a paper, a podcast, a video, or even a discussion. And when they produce a paper, which can be an outline of ideas, then these ideas would then be discussed in a group setting again and again. So I'm not the most important person in the classroom. Yeah, I'm there to help them to get better. And of course, I know that my knowledge is much broader than theirs, which is why I'm there. But I would say my teaching style is very explorative. Students, they should find their own way through it with my help, rather than me telling them what to do. And this was surprising in both countries. I mean, surprising to the students in both countries, because it seems that the teacher is there to transmit, to transmit knowledge, but I'm there to have them learn their skills, to learn their strengths and weaknesses, and to work on their weaknesses, but especially on their strengths. And I mean, this is something that really surprised my students in Germany. Is when I came in, it was a very, very nasty class in the second year. And they went to the principal after the first year and said, we want to have him as our English teacher. And the principal called me and said, how is this possible? I mean, how is this possible that they want you? I said, well, I teach them business, half of the class. And the vice principal once visited me and couldn't believe it that they were quiet and concentrated, and they were working on their computers. And so they wanted me. And when I came in the first lesson, I said, look, I know that what happened in the past, in the 2 years before. Then I said, what we need to understand is that we need each other. Yeah, I want the best for you. I want you to graduate, and especially I want you to enjoy these 2 years. And they just couldn't believe it. What do you mean by enjoying? I said, don't get me wrong, this is not fun. Yeah, I said, going to the cinema is fun, but to enjoy work is also important. Yeah, and this is also what I think when you choose your university subjects, you shouldn't choose them for the fame or for maybe the money you can make out of it, because it's very obvious if you look around that you can make a lot of money with things that are not necessarily related to your studies. Yeah, so you don't have to study medicine to become rich. Yeah, and this is something I encountered, especially with people who have a lower income. I would say they always think about the money. But even, I mean, if as an electrician at the moment in Germany, you can earn a fortune. Yeah, it's unbelievable, because there is just a lack of them. Yeah, but that aside, so my students, I urge them to create a good atmosphere together with me, and I always tell them the only time when you shouldn't make a mistake is at the exams. And whatever happens in between, I said, I personally don't care. And I always tell them, think of a toddler. How many times does a toddler need to fall until he or she can walk? I think thousands of times. And this is something quite surprising, because both in Germany and here, students are very afraid of making mistakes, because apparently the society, or I don't know, even other teachers, they scold them immediately. But I don't. Yeah, I don't. And this is why I think the students accept me the way I am.
I've actually heard something similar from other educators I had on the podcast with many years of experience, and they're always stressing the importance of creating a safe learning environment for the student.
Yeah.
And you do that by normalizing making mistakes. Mistakes should be celebrated. Mistakes are indication that you're actually trying.
Yes.
Because if you didn't, you wouldn't make those mistakes.
Yes.
Right.
And especially in business, I mean, once business gets more complex, also economics, there is not only one solution. It's the same in law, as we were referring to the practice of law before. You have to argue your decisions through.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is not one solution. It's usually 3 or 4, and they have their pros and cons. Yeah, so cutting salaries will be beneficial for the shareholders, but not very much beneficial for the well-being of the staff. The result will probably be that their motivation goes down by 50%, and then they quit mentally and are already searching for another job. This is what I'm teaching my students here. I said, you're said to be the future leaders of this country. And if you take a decision, it will have multiple effects and not just one. And this is very hard to grasp for the students. Whatever they do is they think it has only one effect, but it has not. It's like a snowball effect.
Yeah. That's something that really resonates with me as well. So with a lot of students I see, because their teacher is too judgmental or quick to blame everything on the student, call them names and lazy, rather than trying to genuinely help them. And I think that's what makes you an excellent teacher. And I think that's what makes all other great educators an excellent teacher. The fact that they have the ability to create that safe dialogue in the environment for students to explore, experiment, and learn through their own eyes, perspectives, rather than learn through our biases.
Yes. And about being lazy, I mean, looking back, I've been teaching for 8 years now. I would say 2 or 3% of the students maybe are lazy. And most of the students are just not, they think that they are in the wrong place. Yeah, and it's your job to create the atmosphere so that they can thrive. Yeah, that's right. What I think. And for that, your personality as a teacher needs to be strong, because guiding young adults is difficult. They need discipline and they need your guidance, but it doesn't mean that you have to push them down. And this is something you should absolutely avoid. Yeah.
Right. So what are some qualities you look for in an excellent student? Because we just talked a lot about some qualities of a great teacher now. Because
the willingness to improve. I actually don't look at much at how high were your scores before. The willingness to improve. Talent is completely overrated, in my opinion. I have encountered highly talented students, but what is important in real life is to actually survive, as I've said before. And you survive through your soft skills and through your ability to communicate. That is very important, unless you are a specialist who is working only on their own, like a programmer. But even a programmer will cooperate at some point in time. But the willingness to improve is essential.
Yeah, I've personally also seen in my years of teaching where I see students who start off as outliers, and start off as low achievers.
Yeah.
And they catch up with high performing students in no time with the right amount of push and a little bit of discipline. Yeah, they're not as talented, they're not as bright, but they figure things out. It's because of their, I think, that winner mentality. They keep going after it, failure after failure, setback after setback, until they finally make that work.
Yes, and the other thing is that how can I say this without insulting anybody?
No, please be direct. Please be
No,
direct.
it's just
Please be direct. That's what you have on your mind, and that's the way you see things.
The point is, students develop individually. It means that your mind can be developed at the age of 14, but it could also be that it's highly developed or more developed at the age of 16. But then it will actually basically explode. And if you only judge the students per year, at the age of 14, then you would actually waste their talent. That's what I think. I have a student here in Bukhara. It's actually 2 minutes away. And last year was very, very, he really didn't know what to do. He was always following other students, and I could see it. And also in the exams, he was very weak. But then in this year, I don't know what happened over summer, but he became one of the top students. And also other teachers noticed that he's just brilliant now. So 1 year ago, he was just but he was not at that point yet. But now he is. And what I look at is, I always look at the end of it. Yeah. To discard students just because they're underperforming grade 8 is a mistake, in my opinion. Yeah. And there are organizations or schools who do that because they market their high scores, but they don't never market their levels of improvement.
Yeah, that's such a common problem in a lot of the schools and in the classroom as well. Because simply teachers not willing to put in the work to bring out the good side in the student. It takes a lot of work, because I see that. It's
for me. It's not so much work. It's rather than setting the path properly, and it's also about being patient. If I look at myself at the age of 14, I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And when I graduated from school, I had a D in English.
Yeah.
It was very bad at English. And then when I graduated from university, my English scores, they were as high as my Italian scores. And Italian is my second mother tongue. Yeah. And I received praise from my university professor, and he was actually one of the chief interpreters of the Austrian Broadcasting Agency. Yeah, so he would be the interpreter of American politicians.
That's
so if you receive praise from somebody like that,
that's pretty impressive. That is a big deal.
It's an honor.
It is.
It's an honor, and if I look at myself at the age of 18, I was just very, very bad. I know it. Yeah, but I took my time.
Yeah, right. I completely agree with you on the point of setting students on the right path. But I, at the same time, believe that every single student, especially underperforming students, need extra push from their teacher, a constant push, not just a constant push. And one great example is a lot of the students I teach who come here, I know even after I spend hours lecturing them on what's right and wrong and why they should be studying and in what ways I can help them, and that I can be their mentor and I can help them in a lot of ways, they still fall back to their old habits. And when that happens, it's my job as a teacher to again intervene and pull them out of that state and set them back on that right path, and do it on repeat until eventually it becomes their second nature, following the right path. And that's what I meant, a lot of work on the teacher's part, because I work with a lot of students, and what I've seen in my personal experience is, like you said, majority of the students are great, talented, and they have great potential, but they simply default back to their bad habits unless they are constantly under constant supervision of their teacher. And that's the part where you have to break some sweat. That's the part where you have to get out of your chair, and you should be go back to that lecture and give that lecture all over again, which sometimes can be depressing, right? But I feel like it's really part of my job.
It's part of it, but what I would do, I would rather count on differentiation, in the sense that I would put them into would put them together with high performing students,
Uh-huh.
and put them in a situation where there is competition among them.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, boys are more competitive than girls. Usually,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of a general rule.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have to motivate a student to work single-handedly, you would probably waste a lot of energy. And this is something I would recommend only in a few cases where it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But the first step should always be would be putting them into an environment where they feel the pressure from the peers.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found, especially in Germany, is that if you put together the students who like each other, they will start to learn from each other.
Mm-hmm.
So your job as a teacher is to understand that situation as well.
Yeah.
Rather than going through the same things over and over and over again. I know that our schools are different. I'm just saying it for me because this is a totally different type of school.
Yeah.
I think here it's more about the individual performance and individual achievements, as you're offering IELTS and SAT. Yeah, but in my schools, it would be different. Yeah.
No, you are also right about peer pressure aspect of motivating students.
Yeah. I think this comes from, I think it's a political philosophy that every student should be included. Yeah. I think that each and every student should get the same chances. But I would instill responsibility with the students as well. It's very important because at the end of the day, you need to survive out there. You cannot wait for somebody doing the job for you. I have seen students like this because when I was growing up in Austria, there were students who had very rich parents and they had no motivation at all. But they failed in later life. A lot of them failed. One even went to prison. And he thought that his daddy would get him out of prison. I said, what? I mean, he basically forged accounts.
Oh.
Yeah, and
that's major crime.
What? Yeah, and he was charged with 6 years of prison. Yeah, but this is another story. What I mean is, the students, I say it again, they should be prepared for their real life. Yeah. And the safe environment is at school, and it's also within your family. But at some point, you need to be challenged. I would say usually at the age of 14, 15, somewhere there. Yeah.
So striking the balance between a safe environment and at the same time incorporating some of the challenges of the real world, so they get a taste of what's coming ahead.
Yeah, and prepare them for it. I mean, of course, there will be reflection. Yeah? So, for example, in Germany, the students would return after 2 weeks from their internships, and the internship would be assessed. And it's like, what was it, 40% or 40% of their annual marks, of their annual score would be the internship. And the companies would actually file reports with us. And if on that report it says the student is always absent, always on his phone, always not is not interested at all, always late, then I would speak to the parents and said, do you really think this is a work ethic that will work? I said, this is not part of the school anymore. Yeah, this is real life. I said, do you really want to pay all your son's bills until the end of time? Yeah, and this is where you have to be really direct as a teacher. Yeah.
As someone who's been around here in this country for some time and who's been involved in education, can you highlight some of the strengths and weaknesses of our local education here? So what do you think of our education system? So what are some things that you are a big supporter of, and what are some things you would have done differently?
Big question.
Yeah.
Very big question. So, first of all, I need to say that the government here is very, very progressive. And they understood that education plays a crucial part in developing the country. This is a big strength, and this is something the European countries, with a few exceptions, have completely forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
In other countries like the United States, basic education is commercialized. That meaning that if you want to get the standard that you get in Europe, you have to pay a lot of money for that.
Mm-hmm.
And here there is common sense about the fact that improving education takes a long, long time, and it is based on heavy, heavy investments. And this is something that Uzbekistan has done over many years now. I think over 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. They range in the top 5 of the world in terms of investments into education. And it's not only about reconstructing the buildings, but it's also about offering, or let's say that exposing the local teachers to more international influences. This is my observation. I cannot say anything about university education or higher education. I don't know anything about that. This is definitely a strength, and I need to say I applaud, as a foreigner, what this government is doing. The weaknesses, it's very hard for me to judge it because I'm not working in a traditional Uzbek school. I can only refer to what the students who came from there actually told me. And it's a bit hard to judge what a 13 or 14-year-old will tell you, but there seems to be common understanding among the students that our level of tuition is much higher compared to the local schools. So it seems, I mean, I cannot judge it, but the students keep telling me that in this school, they learn more, and they learn it in a more sophisticated way. So it means to me that the level of university, or maybe is or was in the past, was lower compared to what I'm used to. But this is just a rough guess. I don't really. It's hard for me to judge that. Big question. So, if you ask me what I would recommend, that's another question.
Yeah. Feel free to share some recommendations.
I've only got an insight into the presidential schools, and this is a very, very small portion of the whole education system. But I think the government is also very good in understanding that they need influences from outside, and they're doing that. So I know from Tashkent, I know a few, let's say, teachers in Tashkent, of course, and also professors. For example, an Italian professor who teaches mechanical engineering. And I spoke to some other teachers who came from the new Tashkent University, so to tutors and also to professors. And the government clearly understood that we have a solid basis in the country, but we need influences from outside. And this is why they are getting the foreigners, just like me. That is something that I would also recommend to the government. But the government is already doing it. What I would generally recommend to Uzbekistan is improving their organization. Because when you come from Central Europe especially, not only bureaucracy, but generally your daily life is way more organized than here. And it's planned a lot. And this is something I believe that in general the society needs to learn. Because if you open up a country, like Mirziyoyev has done, you will be put in a competitive situation. It means that you need to compete with people who are used to other systems and that are more efficient. And this can be a disadvantage to those who cannot adapt as quickly. So, how do you teach organization? It's difficult. It's something, and this is something I see as a weakness, but not in the education system, but generally. I will give you one example. I arrived to Tashkent, and then I wanted to take a local flight from Tashkent to Bukhara. So I had to leave the international terminal, basically check out, take a taxi, which as a foreigner is almost impossible if you don't have Yandex, if you don't speak the language, and then you have to drive around the airport and then go to the domestic terminal. There is no bus that takes you there. I mean, what is this? Yeah, I think it's the only airport the only international airport in my life that is like this. Yeah, gladly they are constructing a new airport, but this is what I mean. So for the Uzbeks, of course, it's clear. Okay, I go out, I put my arm outside and get a taxi and drive around for a few thousand soums. But if you want to attract foreigners who work here and live here for some time, the city of Tashkent and also the daily life needs to be more organized. So this is not a criticism directly to the Ministry of Education, but it's something that the country really needs to improve with. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So, for example, here, I mean, buses. You know where the bus stops are. You know where the buses go. I can't read where they go, but where would they stop? In Tashkent, the system is already organized. There are bus stops. Yeah, you see where you are. These are just very, very minor issues. But if you, for example, then go to a bank here and you're used to banks in Europe, you think, oh my goodness, I mean, it's very complicated just to get a bank transfer. So it's called operations. The operations, have to improve a lot.
Right. Well, the good news is all these changes are underway and taking place.
Yes.
And it's only a matter of time before the system becomes more efficient to make it more conducive for our local education system to implement those changes, like bringing the foreign expertise here and making them feel home.
Yeah, and I think that, what I see here in Uzbekistan, there is a lot of willingness to improve, especially with your generation. Yeah, how old are you now?
I'm 24.
Yeah, see, so you're 20 years younger than me.
Oh, yeah.
And I also see it with teachers who are aged 30 to 35. I see it. And I would say that, for example, a teaching license that I have earned in Germany, the concept of a teaching license is actually to teach teachers how to teach them methodologies, it's a teaching license. And this is something that should be implemented as a standard in Uzbekistan. Yeah, if you ask me what I recommend.
So just the same way a doctor or a lawyer is supposed to get a license, you want teachers also be licensed practitioner before they can start teaching in the classroom.
Yes, or just like in my case, you start working, but you're assessed over 1.5 years or maybe 2 years, and you're trained on the job, which is also fine. But there should be something like a license, in my opinion. And the knowledge is there. I mean, the knowledge you can get from hundreds of YouTube videos as well, if you want. But of course, it needs to be organized and planned. So this is my criticism, if you want, so that some things need to be organized and planned.
So from where you come, your home country, teachers are supposed to have a license before they can practice, before they can teach.
Yes. Or you need to be in a program, and they will tell you that within 2 years you need to get the license, and there are courses for it that are, of course, for free. You are paid full time in that time, and they will actually discount some of the lessons you need to teach. And in this time, you would go to courses. It's also a very good system. It's for those who are like me, who have worked in another environment, in another industry, and then wish to become a teacher. Yeah.
What happens if you lose that license for some reason?
In Germany, you cannot lose it unless there is no expiry date on it. I know that there are countries where there is an expiry date, which I think is totally stupid. But anyway, you can only lose it if you commit a crime, basically, which is fair enough.
Yeah, because I know if you're a doctor and you might lose your license if you malpractice.
Yes.
Or same goes for a lawyer. So
and the same for a teacher.
The same for a teacher.
The same for a teacher.
And
I've seen this.
Yeah, and what would constitute malpractice in teaching?
It's not malpractice in teaching, it's misconduct. Misconduct.
which is like inappropriate behavior in the workplace.
Harassment, and so criminal offenses at the end of the day. Yeah. But that is, it's obvious. There is no need to talk about that. Yeah. It's as long as you learn how to teach, and in some countries, I think you need to do professional development twice a year or so, which is also fine. Yeah, I've done it myself, but in Germany, whether you do it or not doesn't affect your teaching license. Yeah.
But professional development,
you need to go to courses just on, I don't know, modern media teaching in the classroom or whatever it is. How to use apps in the classroom. Usually these courses are very good. Yeah, so
like to sort of enhance your skills and bring them up to date.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the world is changing rapidly, and you got to be able to keep up with the new modern practices.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right, I see.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked a lot about education, and there are some other questions I got on the list here. I remember during our meetup conversation, you did mention that you did an MBA, and you also mentioned that on the podcast today. So I'm actually personally interested in doing an MBA. I don't know exactly when I'm going to be doing. So I was wondering if you could point out some pros and cons of doing an MBA. So is it something young entrepreneurs need if they say don't have an MBA? Is MBA a must, or is it something? Is business something people can figure out along the way? So what are some things that MBA teaches?
You can teach yourself accounting, and you can teach yourself corporate finance, and you can teach yourself how to read a balance sheet. You can do that yourself. But the university teaches you how to see through all three of them at the same time, and which are the results of one figure, and how they can affect your business. And this is very, very hard to learn by doing. The other thing is, any university degree, any additional qualification will always enhance your mindset. The more you know, the better for you. About the MBAs, I've seen them changing over the past 10 years. So it was a big business, but it has become more of a big business, meaning that more universities offer these MBAs without actually putting in the quality. I'm not getting you any names today, but I've seen this a lot. So basically any university they don't even have a business department and offer an MBA. I mean, what is that? It's just ridiculous. And they think that doing an MBA just comes from inviting a few externals who deliver their courses and then be done with it. And this is very poor quality, but they would charge you nevertheless 15 to 20,000 for it, if not even more, in dollars, and even more. So I think that an MBA, as any master's degree, should be at home at a university that does research and that has very good connections with the local or maybe the national or even international corporations. And that students should learn from experienced professionals rather than just getting somebody who knows accounting and then teaches you accounting. That's ridiculous. This is something you can do yourself. So I would be very, very careful choosing the right MBA. About the big ones, my university at the time had the same accreditation as Harvard, Yale, and Stanford, and even Cambridge and Oxford. They have sought this accreditation for a few years, and they had it. So it's not necessary that you go for the big names, because quality education is everywhere. And you just need to find it. There are very, very good universities that don't have these big names. So your question was, is it a must? I think an MBA will change your mindset completely. It will open your mind to issues that you weren't even aware of before.
Because I remember during our first conversation, you made the point that you can actually have a startup business without an MBA. But if you one day want to go international, right? If you want to grow, if you want to scale, then you need the hardcore skills. It's not something you can just figure out.
Okay.
Right?
I believe that you cannot understand each and every specialism, but you should at least understand it broadly. You cannot have the same knowledge as the chief financial officer and the chief information officer and so on. You can't. But you need to understand what they are telling you. This is a big problem, especially in politics. Those so-called advisors, they speak to politicians who don't have a clue, especially in Europe right now. I'm not referring to this government at all. I need to point that out. But in Europe, it's an absolute mess. Yeah. So the current Minister of Economics or Economic Affairs, what was he? He was a book salesman. No education at all. I mean, it's a nightmare.
And how's that even possible, right?
Yeah, how is this possible? They call it democracy, but I think it's anyway. Yeah. So, but for you, I mean, coming from a small school that is run by how many people here? How many people do run the school here?
Only two.
Only two, you see. If you want to scale it up to 20, 30, 50 people, you need to be a professional. And you cannot put in the hours anymore just to make your shortcomings vanish. You need to be professionally prepared. So it's very difficult to scale something up. Something that is successful when it's small might not be successful when it goes big or bigger.
That's my biggest fear. That's my biggest fear right now, because we are thinking about scaling because people want us to branch out. People want us to set up our school in other regions, possibly in Tashkent one day. But it's just the whole idea of doing it and not being around and realizing that there is a possibility that quality may go down when I'm not around, and not having the right people in the right place and not being able to coordinate all these events.
Yes.
That's such a daunting task.
Yes, and this is where an MBA or any business studies would help you a lot. And it's something that even the head of HR of Google, or the former vice president of HR of Google, said it's very difficult to get good people. Yeah, and you need to understand who is good. I mean, you can go to a cafe with anybody and, have a good conversation and think, oh, this person is nice and he's speaking in a nice way. But then when the person works for you, it may turn out that it was all superficial. So how do you know that you have the right persons in place, that they're doing their job? Yeah, and this comes partly with experience, but also partly with the right education. Yeah.
I see.
So is an MBA a must? Well, an MBA is expensive. Yeah. And even for me, I was working full time. I had to save each and every dime just to get it. Yeah, and those were hard times. I did a part-time MBA over 3.5 years, and I really don't want to do it again. It took a lot of nerves from me. It was a very, very difficult time. But I recommend it. Let's put it that way. I recommend it, and just taking courses in the specialisms will not help you. You need to have the big picture
in mind.
In mind. And to what would be best for you maybe is to cooperate or speak to somebody who has already done it. But then you would basically have to work with that person for a long time and learn from that person. But you cannot do that because you are here and running this school. Yeah,
I see.
Yeah. What people also underestimate is the political part of doing the job. Once it's small, it's not so political. But once it gets big, it becomes very, very political.
And what do you exactly mean by political? You mean like office politics or
a lot. People are they have their feelings. They some of them are greedy. Some of them want to have power in the company. And how do you deal with those people? You cannot push them down all the time, but you can make a weakness a strength.
Yeah, and it's your job as a leader to assess the situation, the people, be able to read them and identify their needs, and also when necessary be able to confront them about the problems. Yeah.
I think it's also, I mean, what I see or what I have seen as a problem is you're 24 years old now, and if you want somebody to run your school elsewhere, the person would probably be a little bit older than you, maybe 10 years older. So this can also be an issue. And how do you deal with that?
But at the same time, I'm really excited about these challenges.
Yes.
Because I see them as new opportunities to learn and grow. Yeah, not necessarily big problems and new headache like most people do, but to me it's like a reason to wake up in the morning, because I know there's a opportunity, new possibility for me to become the better version of me. Yeah, to take on new skills and qualities and help more people than I'm doing already. Yeah.
I think that's absolutely the right attitude.
Yeah,
to see everything like a challenge. I wouldn't compare it to a football game, but it's it's a game you want to play. And you want to be successful in it, and sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, but overall you want to win, of course. So I wouldn't see this too pessimistic then. It's just the MBA would help you, would definitely help you.
And having the right mindset, as you said, because it's so easy to get hung up on problems I encounter along the way, and when that happens, the way I pull myself out of that the depressive state of mind is by reminding myself that there are people out there who wish you had my problems. Still,
problems are always individual, and you need to fix problems at work. You definitely have to do it, but do you personally always have to fix them? And this is something I've encountered here very much, is that people, I would say in Bukhara, because I've lived here for most of the time, is they still think in hierarchies and the boss is always right. But that's not the case. And so Google, for example, or other very successful companies, they work in clusters who are responsible for their output.
That actually brings me to my next question I got here on the list. So there are different management styles. And I kind of looked into it, and so there's democratic and there's autocratic. So top-down approach, like you said, the boss makes all the major decisions and send them down to subordinates. So which one of these two approaches or styles you personally would have if you had your own business, if you had your own company? Because I feel like I don't feel entirely comfortable having a democratic style of running the school here, because I know the next day everyone would be walking all over me. At the same time, I don't want to be one of those authoritarian bosses who just calls all the shots and never let people speak. So, like, how do you balance those two?
Okay, this is a question I also received from my students, and we talked about it for an entire hour. And the point is, if you are a very, very good guitar player, you know way more than you actually exhibit in a concert. You know more riffs than you would actually play in an hour or 1.5 hours of a concert. So you need to understand as a leader when to apply what. Sometimes you have to kick people. Sometimes you have to speak with people. Sometimes you have to be harsh. Sometimes you have to be charming. Sometimes you can delegate decisions. Sometimes you have to take them on their own. So it's not a decision of what style actually you implement. It's about knowing what to do in a given situation. So this is why I said before, the more you know, the better it is. And in an MBA, you would actually have a year, or in my case, it was a year, a lot of courses on how to communicate. And communication is disregarded in most companies, but it's actually the master class of leadership. How do you communicate? This is the master class. If you master that, then you will be successful, because people are very, very different. Yeah? And my recommendation is actually to apply, or to know what to apply in which given situation, rather than just saying, I pick this one and this will always be good. It can change within a day even. There are times in which you can be, there are good times and bad times. There are times in which financials are restrained. So what do you do in those times? Will you still pay high salaries to those who have supported you for 5 years? Or would you just cut them? Or would you go to them and say, listen, we don't have this money anymore. Would you agree to have a salary without a bonus for 6 months, and then we will sit down again? But then they would ask you, what are you doing? Yeah? What will you do to go back to positive financials? And it's a tough discussion then. Probably a few of them will leave, very likely. Yeah, so the question is, you need to be flexible. You need to understand in which situation you are in.
The other time I had one of my friends on the podcast who also runs a couple of projects in his own school. He actually runs 2 schools, I think. And I posed this exact same question to him. So what's one thing you learned in your all years of business and entrepreneurship? And he told me the number one thing you need is flexibility. Yeah. He said it right from the get-go. He said, you need to be flexible. I know
this friend, by the way.
Yeah.
If we're speaking about the same person.
I doubt.
It's another one. Okay.
Yeah, because he was in one of the recent episodes. I'm talking about Behruz Mukhtarov. He's an Uzbek guy. Yeah, he's an Uzbek guy. Okay. Yeah. And you also mentioned that you did a major in economics, right?
Business
administration. Business administration. I was wondering if you could talk a little about economics as well. My major is also, I did a major in economics. So can you explain to people, our viewers, the concept of an economic model? So what is an economic model? We did talk a little economics during our first conversation.
An economic model tries to abstract a real life situation into something that is understandable, and it cuts out all the possibilities and states certain factors that are given. So it's an abstraction of the reality. That is an economic model.
So it's like an equation with variables.
But depending on the model, there are certain variables. But
have you ever wanted to look into Uzbekistan's economic model?
Oh, that you mean? Well,
because I'm assuming right now at this center of this economic model is education, because you did mention that we make hefty investment in education. So
well, that is a part of it, but there is more to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what is your question?
So have you ever looked into what our economic model is? What constitutes?
Yes.
So,
I mean, the government wants to get away from the centralized economic model that was used in the Soviet Union and also under Karimov, the planned economy, basically. And they want to have an open market economy. They not they only want, but they need investments from abroad. Some investments have already been made, but I heard that there are plans, for example, of privatizing a lot of the national healthcare service. Yeah.
That's happening actually with a lot of the private hospitals and clinics.
The question is, how will it be? Will the state still have a share of 50% plus one share on the hospitals? I don't know exactly how it will be because I can't read the national language. But this is a big part of it. And in this case, Uzbekistan will probably be a state like the United States, where everybody is just for him or herself, and the state will deliver you very little service. So is this what the Uzbeks want? I doubt it. What the government also wants to do is they want to bring in quality from abroad, quality products, basically goods and services. They have a very good cooperation with South Korea, I mean, traditionally, and also with the Chinese, with Russia, of course, as well, as the big brother in the north.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're doing right now is they remain politically neutral, which in my opinion is an excellent step they have taken. So if you look at the companies who are interested, not necessarily investing at the moment into Uzbekistan, they come from the United States, they come even from Russia, and they also come from China, so from all around the world. And the government, for example, doesn't comment any conflict in happening in the world. So they open up and they want foreign investment because they understood that the development of quality goods and services cannot only come from inside. Yeah, they're very aware of it. But this is basically the idea of the old Silk Road, that through exchange of knowledge, countries would mutually benefit from this exchange. Yeah.
And what do you think is the purpose of every economic model? Is it to raise the GDP or people's happiness level? Like, which one of these two indicators do you think is more important, GDP or the happiness index?
You mean referring to Uzbekistan? Or?
I mean, in general, not necessarily our country, but in general. Do you think GDP is reflective of a country's success? Reflects
to some extent, but you always need to look at the GDP per capita, and then you need to look at the real wages. Then you need to look at the distribution of wealth within the country, which is the Gemini index. So there are a lot of factors that contribute to that. I don't understand the question, or where you want to.
So what I mean is, like, does being a rich country necessarily mean it's a happy country? Like, because people think the higher the GDP, the more successful, the happier the country is. Is it something you personally
believe?
Believe.
No, it's not about believing it or not. There is research on it, a lot of research, and it's very, very clear that you need money to be happy until a certain point, and then you will actually get less happy, but significantly less happy. And this is something I noticed here in Uzbekistan. I mean, I would say it's a developing country, and of course the GDP is not up to the big economies in the world. Also, the GDP per capita is not. So a lot of people here think that the more money I earn, the better I will be, which is true only to a certain extent. Of course, if you can't afford shoes for your children, or you can't afford food, then of course it's not a happy life. But once you have covered certain needs, then the question will be if you will be happier. We talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and self-fulfillment comes at a very high price. And does each and every person need to be self-fulfilled, or is this something that we are triggered to do because we watch YouTube and Instagram and see happy people all the time? I don't believe that. I personally believe that happiness comes from a good relationship with your partner. It also comes from a good family and from your children. This is what I believe. I also know that I need to feed my wife and my children, and I need to be generous with my family, or at least communicate with the family. But I think once a certain point is reached, greed will never make you happy. Greed is endless, and this is something that we have seen in history a lot. So the Roman Empire collapsed because of that. Yeah. It's Salustio said it's because of avaritia and ambitio, which ambitio can be translated as ambition, and avaritia is envy. Yeah, so this is what the great historians of the Roman Empire actually wrote about their people, and it comes again and again and again. Yeah. So, for example, the fact that China has got a new middle class, or has had a new middle class for the past 20 years, is certainly a good thing. And also here in Uzbekistan, I see a middle class and an upper middle class developing, which is the sign of a more balanced society. I think that's beneficial, having a more balanced society rather than having a few rich and the rest is poor, just like in Bangladesh or any other country.
I see.
Yeah.
And how do you know you reach that point of diminishing return? How do you know that you should cap your earning or say you should cap your ego at certain level? When do you know enough is enough? Is it 10K a month? Is it $1 million a month? Is it or is it something? Clearly, it's something that varies from person to person.
Yes, and
is there a sign that tells you, okay, you're making good money now? It's time you take care of other people.
Well, the sign would be in your private life. Yeah, if you don't even know who your wife is, because you have not spoken to her for the past 5 or 10 days, and she's still at home, it's just very awkward. What's the point of it? I think there are times when you have to work a lot, but there are also times you need to give back what your wife, for example, gave to you. So just let's assume it's a traditional family and your wife takes care of the children a lot, and it gives you the time and the energy and the support to actually set up something. At some point, it needs to come back. It's to give and take. Yeah, I mean, being at home with 2 or 3 children is hard work. It just doesn't pay the bills, but it's hard work, and the happiness that you retrieve from that is worth more than any money. That's my opinion. Yeah, but especially in the Western world, this has been discarded a lot.
Like family values.
Yeah, it's completely vanished in Europe. I wouldn't say completely, but I mean, I grew up in a traditional Italian family. I basically grew up between 2 countries, and my grandparents in Italy, they lived a traditional life, and I felt very much at home there, and never ever much at home in Central Europe, because the family values cannot be converted into anything materialistic. What is that? Do you think that happiness would come from earning a few more bucks? I don't know.
And do you think the loss of family values will invariably mark the beginning of the collapse? Do you think maybe that's the? Do you think that this is one of the main reasons why West is collapsing right now?
Yes. But the loss of family values is a symptom. It's a symptom. I like the expression dopamine society. So there are several books on it, and there are also scientists who speak about this. So when private television was introduced to Europe, in Austria, it was introduced, I think, in the early 2000s. And then the mobile phones, the smartphones came along. You can create pleasure in a few seconds, by finding a like on your Instagram account very easily. But you can also be depressed very easily. So anything you can command will give you instant pleasure. And this will cause dopamine in your head to unfold. So what it does with your brain is that you're addicted to this situation. And real life is different because you have to work for the respect of others. You just don't get it by posting a few stories and then everybody likes you. Like, you will get 1,000 likes because you post something, but in real life it's different. Yeah, you have to fight for pleasure as well. Yeah, you have to earn your respect. And I think that especially social media these days, they betray especially the young generation. There is a huge discussion in Europe currently, and also in the United States and also Australia, so the so-called Western countries, about the failure of feminism. I don't know what much to say about it, because I've had my values since a very young age, and I will not sell them for anything. Yeah, I just think that the family will stay at the core, and I'm about to set it up right now.
Yeah.
So I think you're right when you're saying that. What exactly did you say?
Is the loss of family values mark the beginning of the collapse in the West?
Yes, but it's a symptom. It's a symptom of a bigger problem.
And you can also see, as a result of loss of family values, in some countries there is population crisis.
Yes,
birth rates falling down.
God,
yeah, because families choose not to have kids, or couples choose not to have kids. I mean, they simply think it's not.
It's very funny to me. I mean, it's just my grandparents. They have been poor for 40 years. Yeah, I mean, my grandfather and my grandmother were born in the First World War. Then they have suffered for 30 years. And then they had the Second World War coming along. Yeah, my grandfather almost died in the Second World War. And after that, there was the colonial war of Italy, and he almost died in that war.
Your grandfather went to 3 wars.
Well, he was born in the First World War, and then he went through 2 wars. And
survived them both.
So he survived them both.
That's a miracle.
It's a miracle, but they have also been poor in the sense that they had to work for their own food, and they have had 4 kids, and those 4 kids have had a lot of kids as well. And whenever I sat there, what I experienced as a child was happiness. So those who were very poor, they've had more children than those who basically have had any choice for their whole life, and they don't want children because of what? I mean, I think, how can I say this? I mean, I know these couples, and they say we don't want children because we can't afford them. Well, if you want to go on a holiday 4 times a year and spend 2,000 or 3,000 euros on it, of course, yeah, a child is
an extra expense.
It's an extra expense. But how on earth can you see a child as an expense? I just don't get the concept. But this is where it all comes from. That a child is seen as a figure on a piece of paper, on your bank statement. I think this is just outrageous. But this is the normality now. And this is where it all goes wrong. Yeah, this is the core of the problem. Yeah, and what I see now in the media is a lot of distraction. Yeah, this is basically, yeah. But I don't want to go into this today because it will lead very far. So at the moment, if I go back to Italy, and I can go to Sardinia, for example, and if I live in a village that has less than 3,000 inhabitants, the first child would get us 600 euros a month, and the second one 400 a month. So they even pay you to have children. And with 1,000 euros, if you live in your own property, you can probably live. Yeah.
If that was the case in Uzbekistan, imagine that. Imagine that. I'd have 10 kids right now. Just kidding. Okay. All right. Yeah. So all jokes aside, I got another question for you about one big economic trend happening now, and it's automation. So how do you feel about automation? So some people have mixed feelings about automation. And when I say automation, I also mean the current new trend, AI, coming in, taking over jobs. And do you think there is a possibility one day we might lose our job to AI?
I think that AI is the end of it all, quite honestly. I think it's the end of quality. I think it's the end of any emotions. I don't see it as a good sign. It basically ends what a human being is made for, namely being creative. AI doesn't develop anything. Yeah, it just accumulates information and then combines it. There are learning robots. Fine. I think in medicine, for example, to cure some diseases, I think it's a good idea. But this is just a minor issue. But as a whole, I see it with my students. They can get the answer to a very difficult question within 2 or 3 seconds. But to actually develop that skill to answer this question, it will take them 3 or 4 months. So it will eventually make a society very stupid. And of course, a stupid society is easy to control. And this is why I'm a huge critic of this. I think it's a very, very bad sign. I think that AI, though, is the expression of very, very good programming. So those people creating these types of software, I would just call them software, they are very clever, but it actually diminishes the abilities of human beings.
And here's my take on AI, and I'm not sure what I'm about to say sounds any plausible, because it might sound like something out of a sci-fi movie, but I feel like there's going to be integration of humans with AI, and that's going to happen only with the elite, the ruling class. Now, you know there's a new technology, Neuralink chips.
Yeah.
So they're going to program AI into that, and only a small pool of people will have access to that technology, and they'll basically practically be superhumans.
They won't be superhumans. They will actually be more stupid than the generation before.
Oh, how so?
Because the chip is limited to a certain amount of knowledge.
But you could have the processing power of the chip at the same time, have your creativity and all that, and combine that into a new skill set.
It will collapse. It just doesn't work. I think I don't believe this.
Yeah.
This is how they want to sell it.
Oh, yeah.
This is, it's not going to happen. Whenever you challenge nature will come back to you. It's also part of humans' history.
So you think it's going to backfire?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
And as we're sitting here, I'm sitting in front of a microphone. So this is a microphone that is pretty basic, I would say, in the sense that technology, it's good quality because the brand is very good. But the crazy thing is that if you buy really, really expensive microphones, they're made by hand. How is it possible that after so many decades of automation, the very good ones, those that cost $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 or even more, they're still made by hand and not by computers? Because the human brain and the human hand is more sophisticated than any technology. Technology can only help you to solve standard problems, calculations, multiplications. All right, this is something a calculator can do quicker than you, but to combine the results, it's only the human brain that can do this. And also, as for manufacturing, if you look at very expensive watches like Breitling, or even Tag Heuer, all of these, they're all made by hand. Why are they made by hand? Because the human hand is better than any robot. And this is, in the whole discussion, it never appears. This argument never appears. But it's a matter of fact.
And do you think there's a possibility AI and robots might one day reach that level?
No, never.
Not a chance.
Not a chance. Not a chance. I mean,
Did you watch the demo video of AI ChatGPT 5? There's a demo video of ChatGPT 5, and you should watch that. I think you're going to change your mind after you watch that video. There's a real interaction taking place between human and a robot program with AI program, ChatGPT 5, and the So basically, the human gives instructions to robot, and he performs those instructions, follows those instructions, and completes tasks in the order it was instructed. And it can also make sense of its environment, and it can comment on what it's doing while it's doing it.
Mm-hmm. As long as his batteries are working.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just, I think I'm under the influence of sci-fi movies like Terminator. Yeah, they coming over and robots taking over the world and setting their own order and using humans as slaves.
Yeah, but this is pretty much what some elites want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking. So they get the Neuralink chip and they program AI to it, and they install it in their brain, and they become superhumans and have godlike powers and start controlling the rest of the world. That's a possibility. That's a good possibility.
I think this is something that is only in the movies, quite honestly.
Yeah. But you know what Elon Musk said once? He said the most entertaining outcome is the most possible outcome. That's what he said in one of his tweets. And I think that's what he implied. The thought of the idea of one ruling class controlling the rest of the world is so amusing that there's a chance it might happen.
If you read one of the most important novels of Italian novelists, La Storia by Elsa Morante. It's La Storia means history. The book starts with the words, I mean, translating right now, it's on the spot. It says, nothing has changed. The new century is just like the old century. They're the ones who have the power, and the other ones who are the slaves. Yeah, and I think it's human nature. If you look at the history of wars in human history, then it's pretty obvious what some part of society wants and the other part just follows. In Europe, it has been different in the past 60, 70, 80 years, from 1945, with a few exceptions. So the civil war in Ireland was, of course, part of it, and the Yugoslavian war was also not an exception, but it was a war. But I think this is another issue. I personally tell my students that they should think in a creative way, and they should stand their grounds. And my personal goal was always to be independent. I don't want to make myself independent from anything, especially from a programmed chip. Do you really know what is in that chip? Yeah. Is it faulty? Is there a mistake that will at some point kill me at the age of 52?
Yeah.
It's just, I don't trust all of this.
Yeah.
I mean, human nature has survived for so many years without that. And only in the past 80 years, I mean, if you look at the level of pollution that we have in the world right now, just because each and everybody is searching for another dime that they want to earn, meaning the elites, not the average Joe. Is it really worth it? Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah, that's
but to answer your question, I think AI is the end of it. It's the end of it, not the beginning of it.
Yeah, that's some food for thought. Food for thought. That's what it is. All right, we're about to wrap it up, but before we do that, I'd like to ask you a few more questions. So, and this is the final chapter of the podcast, and this is where we talk philosophy. But I feel like the entire podcast was something of philosophical. Yeah, but this is the part where we get deep in philosophy. So, number one question I got here is, it's actually a quote I heard on a podcast I listened to. I'm not sure if you know Naval Ravikant. He's Naval Ravikant. Naval. Okay, so he was on a Joe Rogan podcast, and he made this comment here. Most men's problems arise because he can't sit in a room alone for 30 minutes. What do you say to that?
Which men's? I mean,
most men's problems, like people in general. Men here means people.
Males or females or both?
People in general. Most men's problems arise because he can't sit in a room alone for 30 minutes.
I don't think it's a really intelligent quote. It's just human nature to, was it Aristoteles or I don't know I don't remember.
Socrates
said human being is a zoon politikon, meaning an animal that is political, but political in that sense makes that it wants to communicate. So it's the nature of humans to to cooperate and to communicate with each other, and of course there is conflict involved in that. So I don't know what to say about this quote.
I feel like what this quote is trying to say is the fact that people today don't ever take the time to reflect. It just emphasizes the importance of reflection. Being reflective.
Okay, well, that's another thing.
Yeah. I guess that's what the guy had in mind when he said that.
Okay, well, then he should have said that.
Yeah.
Maybe it was taken out of context.
Yes, that's my bad.
Yeah. Well, I think our world is so fast-paced that we really don't take the time to self-reflect, and especially in the past 10 years, whenever you have the time, I see a lot of people are always on their phones and wasting their time, in my opinion. I'm also doing that, unfortunately, and I try to limit it every day. But it's just very, very addictive, I need to say. I own a house in the countryside, and when I come there, I put my phone next to my Wi-Fi router, and I just use my phone as a phone, like in the old days. I don't research anything, and my computer is always off, and only in case I really need it, which is basically never. I use it. So what I do is in that house, or I have a big garden. I work in the garden. I plant some trees, and I mow the lawn, and I improve the building, and so there are a lot of things to do there. I'm never bored, but here in the city, I'm bored a lot because I don't have these. And I think that the nature of humans is also to work within nature and not always be on their phones or on their computers.
Sucked in technology, yes.
Yeah.
Another question I got for you is your personal philosophy. What's your personal philosophy in life? What's something that drives you? What's something that gets you up in the morning? If you were to delayer your identity, what's at the core? What's at the center? What's something that drives you?
The love for my wife. And we have been married only a few months ago, but the thought that I will eventually find her had me get up every day. That is, that's it basically.
Yeah.
Nothing
So it's love.
more. Yeah. So the feeling that I belong to somebody. Yeah. That.
Got it. And how does it feel to be your age?
43.
What does it feel? How does it feel?
It feels better than being 34 or 24 or 14 because I'm well set now. I mean, I've got work experience. I have got experiences in my personal life. I'm more aware of what I'm doing. I feel safer because I know that I can support myself and my family.
So there is like stability.
I'm more confident, let's put it that way. Yes. Yeah. So it feels good altogether. And the good thing is at the age of 43, you can still do sports or climb a mountain or whatever you want to do. So that's something I like. Yeah. I don't know how it is to be 64 or 54.
Yeah. I actually had someone very old on the podcast, Mr. Frank Ford.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know who this person is. And he, when I asked him this exact question, he said it feels great. And when I asked him what's one age he would love to go back to, he mentioned his 40s, his early 40s, like golden age, golden period.
Yeah, my uncle also says that. My uncle is 85, and he says that between 40 and 50, it's the best time, because he said you have enough experience to actually challenge, to survive challenges and to actually deal with challenges, and at the same time you are financially settled.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's partly true, I think. Yeah.
And one final question I got for today is, what's one piece of advice you would give your 16-year-old self or other 16-year-olds out there?
A lot of advice. It's not one piece of advice. It's try to do what you like in your life. Don't think so much about the money you will make with it. Thrive on your talent and don't waste it. Be focused and disciplined. Enjoy the time that you're off work. Any intelligent person needs time to rest. Enjoy that too. Yeah, that's what I'm telling my students. Surround yourself with people who you appreciate and who appreciate you. Yeah, that's more or less the core of my message. Yeah. And as regards my students, don't work hard, work smart.
Yes.
That's basically, it means study efficiently and not just put in the hours that are not leading you to anything. Yeah. Yeah, that's it, what I would say. Yeah, but yeah.
That's a lot of advice. That's a lot of useful advice and a lot to reflect on. Mr. Marco Arienti, it was so much fun, and I'd say a lot of fun talking to you today, and I'm super appreciative. I'm super thankful for you to come on the show and share with us all your experience, your knowledge, and your insights. I know for a fact that I'm going to leave this podcast today with feeling much more enlightened and experienced and wiser, because you gave me this opportunity to talk to you and to pick your brain, and that means a lot to me. So do you have any final comments you'd like to make before we end this podcast?
Well, it was one of the most enjoyable conversations I've had.
I'm
I need
glad
to say that. Just the questions were so intelligently picked, and I really had to think about what to answer. Yeah? It rarely happens like this. So my compliment go back to you.
Thanks. I really appreciate that.
I really liked it. I like to get intelligent questions and that make me think. Absolutely.
Thanks again. It means a lot.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed today's podcast. And if you did, please don't forget to like our content and subscribe. And let us know in the comments section who you'd like to see on the podcast next. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.